Making a full-size Thestral, part 2. Here is my progress so far. He has been almost fully sculpted. Sculpted or put together, whatever you want to say. This part is going to show how to do his neck, his tail, his head. He's got, they've got big long tails. And the little scales on his neck. I have not yet done his eyes, though. I need to do some more detailed, like eyelids and things like that. Right now, it's just the glue and the marble. Before we get started, I do want to point out, look at this awesome horse that's done without any, he doesn't have any horns. He's just basically a horse with wings and a longer tail. This was done by Elk Star Ranch Artwork, and that I found on DeviantArt. Really cool. He's got a lot of them, so go check them out. They're really cool. But if you wanted to do a life-size Thestral that was a lot easier than the one I'm doing, you could just add some hair, paint it black, and give it the details, and make the wings and all that without doing all the sculpting. Just a little idea for those who don't want to spend all this time sculpting and paper macheing. But on to the tutorial for those who do. And the wings part will be in part 3, but here we are going to get going on the head. Okay, taking the ears off is a bit weird because it looks like they're connected between ear to ear underneath. You'd have to, if you wanted to get it out clean, unscrew the back half of the skull here, here, possibly here, which means you might have to take off the jaw, here. A lot of places to unscrew to pull it apart since the ears are connected and held on from the two back parts of the skull. And I'm way too lazy for that, so I took off the front of the ears, which is just, 6 screws all together. And instead of doing that, at first I thought I'd do a hot knife, but you know what? I've got this jigsaw, and I'm just gonna. All right, it doesn't have to be perfect because I'm making the horns come out here. I just don't want something sticking out here. But the horns are coming back this way, so this doesn't have to be cut off perfectly. That's good enough. So I wanted to still be able to have the glowing eyes and the sound effects. So I'm keeping the jaw separated, and I was gonna just glue this marble in. You can hear the sound when you push the button. It's motion activated. I did not think about where the sensor is. I still don't know where the sensor is, but somehow after I did all this, it still seems to sense it when you're close by, not as easily as before. But anyway, you just fill the eye hole with a bunch of clear hot glue, tons of it. Get a large clear marble. I got it in the floral section. Just stick it in, and you can still see it glow. I'm going to make eventually some eyelids, and I haven't even done that yet for this video. That'll be in the next video, but I started sculpting eyelids on this, and I realized it was just going to get ruined when I did everything else, so I pulled out all the sculpt of the eyelid, and we'll do that almost at the very end. So once it's secure, then we move on. So here it looks like I'm doing dental work on a horse, on a dead horse, but putting in those golden fillings. But this is tinfoil and masking tape. I'm using tinfoil to fill in some of the gaps with the teeth and whatnot. Like I said, I want to be able to access that sound function, so I am not putting his head all together. So I put a thing to separate his mouth so I could work on his teeth, and just kind of taped over that bit so that it would just be all flat. I later end up covering a lot of it because things change. But yeah, I just wanted it mostly flat, so here I am taping it, sticking in those fillings and taping it. No funny teeth going on here. I started using tinfoil, and then I realized the ear that we took off was going to be a really good shape to get me started on the beak, give it a little bit more, something to hang on to. So I just got the back of the ear that I had taken off and started gluing it onto the front, because he has kind of a, the Thestrals don't have like the nose right in front. They have a beak, sort of. So anyway, it kind of curves out. Use a resource picture. Look online for like a close-up of the one that they have in the Harry Potter museum thing in London, and find a picture of it, because it really helps to have access to the picture while you're sculpting the beak. So then I started gluing on pieces of tinfoil that I molded. You just kind of get a basic mold. Keep it kind of lightweight, not too heavy, because we don't want this to get too heavy. Keep it kind of just kind of a wad that's kind of light, and you can bang it down a little more after. I cover it with tape. Let's see, I think I cover, oh yeah, because it kind of flips out. I wanted it to kind of curve towards his bottom lip more than out, like the ear does. So I add a little bit more on there. Don't work on the bottom jaw until the top jaw is all connected, because I did that before and messed up. So I'm just don't work on the bottom jaw right now at all. So yeah, that's just shaping with a hammer. I like to use a little hammer to shape it. It's a lot easier than trying to push with your hands. Tape it up again. And then I think I shaped it a little more even after I had the tape on. Okay, so I'm making the horns with tinfoil again. I made the horns way too big and also pointing further up than they should have. So don't make my mistake. You can't really go smaller once you've taped them on and put the clay on, but you can always go bigger. Anyway, mine are pretty big, but you shape it in a basic horn shape, glue it on, and then after you've gotten them on to close to the right shape, you can take a little hammer and, just like before, kind of hammer into shape. Sometimes if you have a lot of little pieces of the tin foil, it might start falling off, so you can just tape them on. And you can always hammer with the tape on too, which I do a lot more hammering once the tape is on. You can see I have my iPad with the picture reference in the background. I think it's a great idea, so you can see how close you're getting. Mine, like I said, ended up being too big. So I think I decided to make them a little more pointy or something. I don't know. But I probably got too caught up into the detail with the tinfoil, when I could have made them a little smaller and gotten more of the detail with the clay afterwards, which I end up doing anyway, because once you put the clay on, all the detail I got in the horns with the tinfoil kind of got erased, and I had to make it again with the clay. So anyway, tape it up and hammer it again, get it into shape, and then it's time to start with a little more detail on the face. Thestrals have a lot of veining and stuff in the face, just, a lot of muscle in the face and detail. I really am not going to be able to get a ton of detail, but I wanted the detail that I do have to be really dramatic, so I'm making these really big ridges along his nose. In all the depictions that I've seen of the Thestral, they have these big, huge holes kind of halfway through the snout for their nostril, and I didn't feel like drilling a big hole and sculpting it that way, so I'm just kind of trying to build up a nostril there to get as close as I can. And then I build up a few more veiny type muscly areas along the face. I think I even did some details with hot glue, but then they get covered up with the paper mache clay that I'm using, and I pretty much cover the entire face with the paper mache clay, because what I learned with the body is that all the parts that go from clay to plastic, they start peeling right there, which I'm going to heal those peeling parts on the body with hot glue, because hot glue will stick to paper mache clay and plastic. But here I just do pretty much the whole face is going to be covered in the clay. I'm using the last bit of that paper mache clay the last bit of the drywall compound that I was making the paper mache clay out of. And I got a big, huge thing of it. It was late at night when I was doing this. And once I started running out, I didn't want to get more. And I had some of that more expensive paper mache clay mix called Celluclay. It's just add water kind. And if you do want to use Celluclay, after starting to use the Celluclay, I decided I liked it so much more. It's just less sticky and tacky. It probably doesn't get as much detail though. It's probably not as smooth as the Celluclay, but it's definitely less tacky. They are very similar. But it is pretty expensive. It's like $25 for a big bag, which is going to make about half as much as a recipe will of the other stuff. But, you know, the other stuff's $10 for a thing of glue and $7 for that. So it's not really that unsimilar. Plus, you can get 60% off coupons for Joann's once in a while if you sign up for their texting list. And every time they have a 60% off, get the Celluclay. So I'm just putting this on like I did with the body. You kind of blop it on with your hands. And then one thing I learned is a wet spoon or a spray bottle really are a super big friend. The spoon, I keep using my hands, but the spoon really is the way to go. Put it on like frosting, smooth it out with the spoon, dip the spoon in water, or spray the whole thing with clay. The whole clay with a spray bottle. But if you do get it too wet, it can stop being very moldable. So careful not to get it too incredibly saturated. But that layer of water over a kind of dryish clay really helps. So I'm just trying to keep the detail that we put on with the tin foil. Although this paper mache clay, Celluclay, kind of goes on a little bit thicker than the kind that you get from Ultimate Paper Mache Recipe. But like I said, it is just nicer and faster to work with, I feel like. And I think I changed my mind about pricing. It's just a little bit more, and for me, worth it to not have to do all the mixing. So yeah, just get it kind of molded like that. Don't get too concerned with details at this point because the details will just get kind of, you can do a little bit of those after it dries all the way. You can add a few more details. So here's me and my 4-year-old Penny. We are sanding down the body while we wait for the head to dry. Because it was almost dry. Like the parts where it was really thick, it wasn't really dry, but it was dry on the outside enough to sand it. But it's not dry enough to paint it because it still needs, to dry all the way through. But it was dry enough to sand it pretty well. Always make sure that when you're sanding, you wear a mask so you don't breathe in any of the stuff. So I'm going to work on the neck while the top of that head is drying. I could have used cardboard or something, but I just decided to go all out with a ton of tinfoil. I used a ton of it, like a whole container of tinfoil. Me pointing up to there's that spot where you stick in something to unlock the joints. If you want to be able to take the head off of the neck, you need to make sure you keep that free and open, and also of course the joint can't stick together. If I was to do this over, I probably would have just put the head and the neck together because you got to get the neck off to save room, but I'm not sure about the rest. Anyway, so you get it in the shape you want. I'm trying to go for sort of an S curve, and then I taped it first before hammering it because I had so many pieces of tinfoil that they were going to just fall right off. So I kind of taped it after I got the main thing, leaving it as hollow as I can, light amount, otherwise it starts to get too heavy. You don't want that neck really heavy with a thick thing of tinfoil. I decided it needed to be a little more of an S curve. I'm trying to give it more of the S shape on the top.
going to the left and also more on the bottom on the right to give more of that S shape. And I'm just kind of plopping it on there, taping it on, and then again kind of hammering it into shape. It's not like a hammer, like hit hard. It's soft little taps because this is a really airy amount of tinfoil. It's airy tinfoil. We haven't put a ton on. It's still lightweight. But tinfoil is just hard to shape with your hands. The hammer, you can slide it with the side, you can hammer it, whatever, but it's really pretty good. Oh my gosh, so you see me trying to blob on a ton of that clay and it fell immediately. You gotta kind of like stick a little bit on at a time. And it's honestly really hard to smear on and get it to stay at first. I'm just kind of smearing it on like mud on a wall. And it takes forever. And I used a ton of this on the neck, a lot more than I thought I would. But you just kind of smear it on messily. If you could use a spoon, I just felt like hands would be faster. I really don't think in the end they were, but my instinct is to just use my hands and it gets really messy. The spoon really is better, but I think, one little spoon at a time can take a while. You're going to do a few overs, go over it really roughly with your hands. You're going to do it roughly with the spoon, more finely with the spoon, and then more details with the spoon. Here I am kind of patting it out. I sprayed it here first before doing this. You can kind of smooth it over when you spray it or get your hands really wet with soapy water. Even helps better than just water. You can even in your spray bottle put soap in your spray bottle to help it get more slippery. Get your spoon, keep a bottle or bowl nearby, and keep that bowl nice and warm water because it's nice to stick your hands in the warm water instead of freezing cold water, especially if it's an October day and you're outside in the garage. You can't see it very well here, but I'm trying to get some veining, or I guess it's more tendons or muscles or something, but something so it's not just this big stick sticking out of the head. So to get some more of that detail, I'm putting on almost like little spit wads, little pieces in a line, and then I'll smooth it over with a spoon. Can't show every step or else this would be hours and hours long. So and also it's just really hard to see the detail from this vantage point, but I'm doing basically a big huge line down the left side, a smaller one down the right side. Okay, I want to start on the bottom jaw part, but I obviously need some space, so I'm looking for something to hold his jaw open. And what I decided on was a cup, a plastic cup. It kept kind of slipping. When I put it on its side, it was a little bit better. But anyway, going on the shape of his jaw, really all I'm doing is it's kind of hollow underneath, so I taped it across just like I did on the belly. And also, yeah, you can only see my messy the back of my head, but so sorry about that. But I'm taping on kind of a beard looking thing, a little gobbler under him, and give him kind of a shape. And figuring out how to get that cup to stay. That way ended up working the best, was just having it on its side. And then after getting the gobbler shape, which I did with the tin foil, and I taped the whole thing so that it would take the clay better. You put the clay on just like you did with the rest, glob it on and then smooth it and then smooth it again. It's like an initial globby smooth and then smooth again with water spray. I did the whole jaw, but then later I ended up covering up most of this jaw later with something else I'm doing. So I might not have even done that bit because the back part of the lower jaw ends up getting covered up. Okay, his cheesy grin was annoying me, so I still wanted to be able to open his mouth for access to the thing, so I I'm trying to figure out a way to cover up the cheesy grin. So I'm kind of taping on this big jowl type thing, like a big cheek thing. So you can't just tape it on and then slap on the clay. I know that because I did, and the cheek thing fell off. So you want to, and I just taped and then stapled the tape, but you should probably just tape the staple the actual cardboard right to it. But I've got the staple gun. I'm stapling it to it. Some of those staples are sticking through and not are just sticking through the cardboard and not sticking to the back side of the horse. But that's okay because right now, you know, I was sticking the clay on the back side of the thing and sticking wet clay right into those staples to help secure it more physically. So when that dries and is also sticking to the other clay, because the clay sticks to itself really well, then it'll be far more secure. So I just did, you know, those seams and then stop there and let it dry for a while so that it can become strong before adding all that weight to the rest of the side of the face there. Here's a shot of the back. I just kind of did the seams. It's really hard. It was really sunny. So it's kind of hard to see that. But there's the back of that. There's another shot of just kind of covering those seams up. Pushing right into where the staples were so that it will get more secure. Let it dry. Okay, time to do the tail. In all the depictions, the tail seems to be pretty darn long. Some have hair. I might put a little bit of hair on this one, but I wanted to make it not just hair hanging, but on a physical, like, spiny tail that's really long. So I got some really thick wire, folded in half, and taping it on. And then taping all around the wire to give it something to hang on to for the clay. And then, of course, just go get the paper mache clay. Again, it's kind of hard to get it onto a tail. But I did my best. As you can see me struggling here. Yeah, you're going to have to get out the spoon and work with that a little bit, or get your hands really wet. Or, yeah, maybe have a bowl of really hot water or really warm water, just because it's, you know, cold to be sticking your hands in water all the time. At the top here, I decided to cover it up, even though it looked nice on the original tail, just so it'd be the same texture as the rest, and give it a little bit of a spine so it gradually fades off. I wanted the spine of his neck to be kind of spiky. So here I am putting globs on to get the shape started. And then as we get after we get a bunch of globs on there, then I start shaping them with the spoon, just making them soft and rounded. And then I go back again and start shaping them again with the spoon. I think I'll show this part in a second, where I'll stick my finger underneath the glob and use the spoon on top and kind of curve it around to give it more of a spiky type look, where it's kind of pointing, curved on top and more pointed on the bottom. So not all the depictions have these spikies. Some look more like the spine or whatever, but one of them I saw somewhere that someone drew had spikes, and I just thought it would be cool on mine, since doing the very small details won't be very noticed on this, and that one was kind of a loud detail, and I thought I would extend it to the front of the face a little bit. So he's got these little bumps on his face, and then I also decided he just needed some more prominent jawline stuff, so I built that up as well. Oh, and his nose, I thought that needed to be a little more prominent too, so I built that up as well. So
I wanted to give a little bit more than just a flat thing on that jowl, so I put on some foil. I think I taped it on, but I also glued it on the bottom with hot glue. And then just kind of slapping on the paper mache clay and then spooning it smooth. It's kind of hard to get it around the edge and around the back and get it nice and shaped, because you kind of want it to be thin. You don't want that paper mache clay to get too heavy and pull his face off with gravity. So you want it to be relatively thin. I got it way too wet, and so it was really hard to make these kind of spikes I wanted on his jowls. So I had to go back later and kind of form them a little bit better with, which is also the same kind of clay, but a white version of it that they sell, the Solu clay. Anyway, I think he's looking pretty good. We're almost done. We just need to sand him, do the wings, and do the eyes, like the eyelids. So stay tuned.